Hello everybody, it's Mike here at Game from Scratch, and if you've ever been interested in doing some retro game development, specifically in C or assembly language, but you just couldn't be arsed to actually set up a development tool chain, or you just found it overwhelming, I have the perfect tool for you. If not, if you're just interested in this stuff in general, this is still going to be an interesting video, I promise you. What we're looking at today is something called 8-Bit Workshop. Now, I know a few of you are going to groan when I make the next sentence. It isn't entirely web-based, but don't let that turn you off. Honestly, this makes it so easy to get started with this kind of stuff. But it is an 8-bit development environment, an emulation system, and code editor all in one that runs directly in your browser. So what you do is you head on over to 8bitworkshop.com in your browser, and that's it. You're ready to go. You just click this big blue button right here, and you are in it. And we will look at what this means in just a second. But what you can see on the right-hand side is your emulation running. On your left-hand side is your code. In this particular case, this is being generated with this assembly code. So if you ever wanted to learn old 8-bit style programming in assembly or C, this is the perfect project for you. Now, in this particular case, we're actually seeing NES code, NES, or the Nintendo Entertainment System. And this was just added in the most recent release of 8-Bit Workshop. We'll look at the release details in just a second. But just let you know, you can run a ton of different projects here. And you see, it's kind of a simple setup. Over here, code editor, over here, your emulator. You can actually resize right here, and you will see it automatically scales up. Over here, you've got all the various different projects that make up your project, including DAT files, if you so wish, CHR files, and of course, your assembly files in this case. You'll see over here, you've got various different tools, such as your disassembler, a memory browser for seeing what is happening live in the emulated memory, and this is kind of how things worked back in those days. To make something happen, you peeked or poked or pushed memory into a certain value there, and then something happened. So this is an invaluable tool for figuring out what's going on. You've got a thing for looking at the current state of VRAM, and the nice thing is these things had so little memory that you can actually just kind of scroll through it very, very quickly. Well, not in this particular case. There's enough VRAM that this will take a while, but you can actually go directly in and take a look at the memory. Here we can see the memory map. We've got a profiler here to see how the performance is going on. You'll see it's kicked the crap out of my live performance. And then we've got an asset editor here for doing things like creating sprites and font files and so on. And then up here, you will see you have your traditional debugging tools. You can do things like set breakpoints. You can step it over, step into, run to a current line, and everything you need to effectively develop and debug your code. Now, your main menu is over here, and you see you can do things like create a new project. You can open up individual files. You can sync your code out to GitHub. You can download the ROM file, that's the compiled ROM file. You could download the source file, whatever. And you download this ROM image, you should then, in theory, be able to run it in any kind of compatible 8-bit emulator. So you can distribute the code that you've actually created. You can share your work, and you also record a video directly from the tool. Again, we've got debugging tools, and we've got some built-in tools for things like fonts and tools specifically for the VCS or the 2600, the Atari 2600. And in this particular case, as I mentioned, we are actually seeing an NES being run. But if you come up here and look at platforms, you'll see we have two different game platforms supported. We've got the Atari VCS, and we've got the Nintendo, the original Nintendo here. So here now we are seeing some examples this was in Atari Basic, but you'll see here you got a ton of assembly examples. So you want to do a hello world on a virtual Atari, there is the code required to do it. There is the memory result of it. Again, there's a little bit less tooling here. There's more tools on the Nintendo side of things than there are on the Atari side of things. But you'll see you've got a ton of assembly examples. And then, again, just switch it out, and you can see your code running over here. And then we'll go back again to the NES for a second and showcase that there are also, so far we've just been looking at assembly examples, but most of these are actually, so here's a sprite example using straight out C code. And there you can see the end result over here. So if you wanted to work with C code instead, that is your option as well. And again, you just basically can come in here and just start typing code, and you will see it evaluated and run on the fly. Again, there's an absolute ton of examples here. So we've got a full-blown climber game here, entirely written in C. Sorry about the sound blasting there. I did not expect that. So let me just move this to something else. But as you see, there are full fat games in here to get you up and going. Now, on top of those platforms we saw, there's a couple of other ones, including the Apple II. various different arcade hardware, including the Midway 8080 machine, Williams Z80 based machines, Color Vector, Galaxian. We got some specific hardware of Verilog, and then we've got MAME-based Nest, MAME-based Atari 2600, and MAME-based Nest versions here. And for some reason, Markdown, which is a markup language, I don't know why that is there, but it is there. Now, another cool thing that they've done here is they've also got a number of books available. So if you want to learn how to do 2600 coding or arcade games in C, or the most recent book they just released, making games in NES, they have these options here. Now, you'll notice if you click on it, and this is very strange, I don't know why this happens, but you see you get paperback only pricing. Well, as we'll see in a second, there is actually a much cheaper digital only version of it for Kindle. So I don't know why it isn't shown here alongside. So I click there. Yeah, so even when I say other formats, it's not there, which is very confusing, as you will see in just a second. But there's these companion books that actually show you how to code for those target hardware. So if you ever want to learn how assembly works on those machines, these books will actually show you or teach you. All right, so that is kind of the basics of 8-Bit Workshop. Now we're going to go just really quickly look at the 3.40 release. And again, the biggest thing here in this particular release was new support for the NES, or the Famicom, as you can see up here. You can program in both C and 6502 assembler. There was a ton of examples to get you started, IDE, and then all the various different tools we already saw there. And of course, they released this new book. Now, here's the part that I found very, very interesting. Kindle edition. And of course, I will link all of this down below. So everything we're looking at here, look in the linked article. I will have links to everything that you could possibly want. But you'll notice here, we have another book, exactly same thing. Only versions available are Kindle, and it's only $7.50. So again, I don't know why the other page doesn't have the print version, doesn't have the Kindle version, and the Kindle version doesn't have the print version, but just do be aware. If you want to go ahead and get a digital version of the book, you can get it for like $7, $8. On top of that, there are also a number of examples available. So if you go up to 8bitworkshop.com/projects, you will find some people have actually submitted full-blown games that you can download and learn from yourself. And then finally, and I guess I should have probably mentioned this right up front, this is also an entirely open source project. So everything you just saw, a lot of it is built on top of existing open source projects, but all the code is available here. It is up on GitHub. Of course, I will link this as well. You'll notice here by the commits that there were commits 4 days ago. So this is very much under active development. All of the stuff, all the dependencies, things like Javatari, JS, and so on, CC65, the libraries it depends on, everything there, they're all part of this as well. Now, you may be wondering, what license is this under? It is under the GPL v3 license. Now, you've heard me harp on the GPL v3 in the past, but that is just for game engines. Now, for tools or software, it works fine for me. That's why Blender being GPL v3 makes perfect sense. It just kind of prevents you from forking it but not making your code available. It is an effective license, but as long as you're just using something as a tool, doesn't matter. It's a perfectly fine tool that if you want, or perfectly fine license, so that if you release a tool and you don't want people to just, spin it off and then, monetize it and not contribute back, GPL v3 makes a ton of sense. It's just when you start getting into frameworks and so on that I don't like it. Now, what I do find a little interesting, and I'm not a lawyer here, but I don't think this is actually technically allowed. So you've got things when there are GPL v3, sometimes that is an overriding license. So I don't know how this particularly works out, but again, that's legal speak. I don't want to get into it. But on top of that, all the code examples and assets are available under the CC0 license, which is Creative Commons 0 license, very liberal in what it allows you to do. So you can kind of reuse those assets how you see fit, but do be, of course, sure to check out the full details of what CC0 actually means. But it's pretty liberal in what it allows you to do. Also keep in mind, it is only CC0 if it does not have an overriding license. So that is it. That is the 8-Bit Workshop. It is, again, it's an entirely browser-based development environment for retro machines. It takes all of the little pieces that you have to get yourself, the C compiler, the dependencies, or the assembler, the emulator, all of that stuff, and just puts it all together for you to make things super, super easy. Now, this is an area I've always been a little interested in. I've always wanted to do some retro console development, something like Game Boy or NES or, yeah, even Atari. Back in the days where things were super, super, super simple. And it was kind of like this when I started off in the DOS days. It was a fun way of programming. So I can understand the appeal of doing retro game development, but I've never really cared enough to spend my time setting up a development environment, learning how this stuff works and making everything work. So I guess I'm interested in it, but I'm not that interested in it, I guess is a good way to put it. And the cool thing here is this makes it so easy to just jump in and get started using either C or assembly that, you know what, I may actually check this out. And on that topic, I may also actually pick up one of those books. So let me know if you guys are interested. I could pick up this Kindle version. $7.50 is definitely a price I can swallow. Let me know if you guys are interested in a book review on this one. If there's enough people, I'll pick it up, give it a read, and let you know what I think of it. But in the meantime, do be sure to check out 8-Bit Workshop. Even just come through here, look at some of the sample code, check it out running in the browser. It is a cool way of seeing how things used to be done. And if you're interested in getting into 8-bit retro development, this is an excellent tool and an excellent opportunity. So hopefully at least a few of you found that interesting. Let me know what you think. Are you already doing some retro game development? If so, what tool are you using? I know a lot of people don't like the idea of web-based tools, but in this one, it makes total sense to me. And then on top of that, if you do actually go over to the GitHub page, you will notice you can just fork it and run it locally on your own local web host. Like this. This is all the steps actually required to get it up and running locally once you've cloned the repository. So you can run it on your own server locally. You don't need to depend on a remote server. You could probably bundle it into an Electron app and make it all just seem like a local application if you so wished. So don't let the browser-based part turn you off. It is definitely a cool project, and in my opinion, it just makes sense to run in the browser, to be honest. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about that browser thing. Is it a turn off for you, or are you like me? You think this one actually makes sense? Because I do love the number one strength here is just how bloody easy everything is. So you got your emulator here, you got your code here, you got your tools over here, you got debugging support, and you got pretty much everything you need, including the ability to switch between a variety of different platforms. All right, interested in hearing what you have to say, and I will talk to you all later. Goodbye for now.